Good morning, Holmes Road Church of Christ. Hope you're having a great Wednesday in the Lord. Hope things are going well. Let's bring you a little devotional thought to encourage you along your way. What is your name? Folks, I know most of your name. People who watch this video, I probably know your names, but does your name have meaning? Is there any kind of meaning behind it? Many people have wondered about my wife's name, Janda. Does that mean anything? Well, yes, it does. Janda is named after her two parents. Her mother's name is Janice, and her dad's name is Dale. Janice, Dale, Janda. They kind of just shoved the two names together. So Janda has a great meaning because it represents her parents, and that's what she is. She's a representation of her parents and her parents' names. And a name often carries a lot of importance like that. But what is even more important than a name is oftentimes the character and the reputation behind that person's name. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 1 says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches, and to be esteemed is better than silver or gold." Unfortunately, I've known some people in my time that have done some really awful things. And as a result, they've had a horrible reputation assigned to their names. When their name is said, people will cringe and writhe because they recall the horrible things that person has done. I even know people who have come to Christ and who have been forgiven in baptism, have their sins washed away and their past gone. But people, they don't often easily forgive as Jesus. And even though they're living great Christian lives today, they can't escape their sins of their past from the people. People hold it against them. But there is good news for these kinds of people who suffer with bad reputations from their past. In Revelation chapter 2 and verse 17, Jesus tells the Christians in Pergamum that even though they have horrible reputations, the people in Pergamum had suffered because of their names, and deservedly so. There were some horrible things going on there. But he tells them he has a new name reserved for them in heaven if they continue to fight and conquer temptation. Turn to Revelation 2 and read verse 17. It says, "To the one who is victorious, I will give that person a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it." A white stone with a new name written on it. First of all, let's talk about this white stone. What is this white stone, and what does it represent? What does it mean? Well, there's been a lot of variety of opinion in regards to the meaning of this symbol, and almost no two scholars agree on what this represents. The illustrations have gone from everywhere, from Grecian, Hebrew, and Roman customs. But none of these seem to remove all the difficulty from the expression. Even when we try to figure out, through the Greek study and the Greek words, it's a symbol that is obscure. And the fact of the matter is, we may just have to accept it as being unknown. We're not sure what John was referring to with this white stone. I'll give you several interpretations. One scholar by the name Dr. Robinson puts forth the idea that in ancient Greece, jury members, whenever someone was brought forth in the Greek courts, jury members would cast a white stone to signify acquittal, whereas a black stone proclaimed the defendant guilty. And so when Jesus says, "I'm going to give you a white stone," he's saying, "I find you innocent." But the weakness of this interpretation is the fact that in the Greek courts, they never wrote names inscribed on the stones at all. They were always just blank. So I don't know if that was what John was referring to. Could have been. Who knows? But another idea was the idea of the Roman tessera. The Roman tessera was a small object made of wood or sometimes stone, sometimes clay, sometimes bone. And it conveyed special privileges to the owner of that. The ancient Romans used tessera as tokens of admittance to special events in the arena. It was like a token for someone to be admitted into a high-class event. But the problem with that one is the tessera didn't always have to be white, and it wasn't always made of stone. It was made of different ideas. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe it wasn't. Another idea or thought is that the white stone was some kind of an amulet or a charm. And that was true amongst people who were involved in sorcery of the time. But I find it hard to believe that John would use sorcery objects as a symbol of salvation. So I don't think necessarily that's it. Another interpretation has to do with the building materials used at the time. John wrote Revelation. Important buildings were commonly made of white marble, including the temple of Asclepius in Pergamum, the city the city that Jesus is addressing here in Revelation 2:17. And in front of that temple were white marble pillars with engravings of the names of the people who were supposedly healed by the god Asclepius. But again, it's very doubtful to me that John would be using Greek mythology and Greek gods to use a symbol of Jesus' salvation. Maybe, but I doubt it. One of the better accepted explanations among scholars is that maybe the white stone had to do with the fact that the high priest wore a breastplate back in the Old Testament. And those breastplates contained 12 stones. And each of those stones had the names of the 12 tribes of Israel engraved on that. You can find that in Exodus 28 and verse 21. As he ministered into the temple, the high priest would then bear the names of God's people, and he would take them with him into the presence of God. And so, therefore, the white stone in the breastplate of the high priest would symbolize people being in front of God's presence. And so maybe that's what was being referred to here with the white stone, was that the fact that you're in God's presence and he's giving you a new name. I like that one, but maybe another good thought regarding the meaning of the white stone was to do with the ancient Roman custom of awarding white stones to the victors of the athletic games. The winner of the athletic contest was awarded a white stone with his name inscribed on it. And this became sort of a ticket, a very special award to a very special banquet that only the winners could go to. And so a lot of people think that's kind of what it was referring to, was that ancient Roman athletic banquet called aspect, and that John was trying to say, when Jesus gives you that white stone with your name on it, you're invited to his special banquet. And yet another theory is that John was a Jew when he wrote he was a Christian Jew when he wrote this book, and he's writing primarily to other Christian Jews. So when Jews heard of God giving a stone, they'd immediately think of God giving the stone tablets to Moses in the Mosaic Law and the Ten Commandments. But why white? I mean, it didn't say anything about white, but if you turn to Deuteronomy chapter 27, and you look at verses 2 through 8, it talks about in those verses that when the day arrived for the Israelites to cross Jordan into the land of Canaan, that God told them to set up white stones and whitewash them with lime. And on those white stones that the people were to write the words of the law. And so many people assume that maybe this was the idea that God was saying, this is my new covenant. The fact is, no one can say for certain what the meaning of the white stone is. But whatever the lesson here is, we know for sure that God is making a promise. God is saying to us, I'm going to give you a new name that's going to wipe away the past shame, the past embarrassment, the past negative association. If people say your name and they recall the horrible things you've done, Jesus says that's all over. I'm going to give you a new name. Your reputation today may be tattered, and your character may be seemingly beyond repair. But God says that ultimately, that will not define you. It's not what man calls you, or even what you call yourself for that matter. You are who Jesus says you are. He's going to give you a new name. Live today what your name will be in eternity. That is the lesson for you this morning. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned some things, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, Holmes Road.